how to get a great metal kick drum sound in BFD2. So in this video I just want to show a couple tips, things that I use to get a great metal kick drum sound using BFD2. So let's get started. So the first thing, you want to load up your kick drum. In this case we have a Pro Masterworks kick drum chosen and loaded in this spot here. So the next thing that we're going to do to craft our metal drum sound is to load another kick drum, but a very specific kick drum. It's the DX kick, which is an electronic kick drum. So we can see here, this comes with BFD2. So we'll load that into our other kick drum slot. Now you don't have to load it into another kick drum slot, you can load it into any slot you want. So the next thing we'll do is link our DX kick, which I'm going to refer to as a trigger, to our kick drum. So we'll link our trigger, so we'll right click, link, and make sure we choose the Pro Masterworks kick in this case. So we'll choose that, and that links our DX kick to our Pro Masterworks. So then we'll want to link our kick drum to our trigger. So we'll right click, link to, and choose DX kick. And after we have these two kicks linked, now whenever one kick is played, the other is also played as well. So what I'll do is I'll mute our DX kick, so that's muted. I'll go here to our mixer, I'll turn off all the effects, which we'll get to in just a minute. So now we'll hear just the Pro Masterworks kick. So not bad. So now we'll come back and turn on our effects that we have loaded already. Pretty good. Now we'll add in our DX kick, so now that's unmuted. Much better. Nice strong low end punch, nice clarity in the top end, a nice click and nice strong punch. And you see whenever I play either kick drum, you'll see here that they're both triggering at the same time. Okay, so now on to some other tips. So in metal, we're often using really down-tuned guitars, and we're also layering guitars, layer upon layer. You have 4, 5, 6 tracks of rhythm guitars, not counting bass, and then some crazy person screaming over top of it. Then maybe you'll have a lead or melody guitar as well. So we need our kick drum to not really compete too much with the frequency range of our guitars. So in order to do that, what I like to do is tune down both of these kick drums. Now I find that tuning down anywhere from -1 to usually -3 works pretty well. It all depends on the sound you're going for and the actual acoustic kick drum model you're choosing. So you see here our Pro Masterworks is tuned down about 3 semitones. We have our DX kick turned down a little more than 1, about 1.5. So we hear those. Sounds great. Now if I were to tune these both to just their standard tuning, it's not bad, but it's a little bit too high. Once we start layering guitars on top, it's going to completely wash out our kick drums. So we'll tune this back down to around 3. Nice. That's really going to punch through. Tune this down. Great. So the next thing, while we're on this page, is your overhead, room, and ambient sends. Now in my opinion, you don't want to decouple your kick drum from the rest of your kit. I like everything to live and breathe in the same space and sound like one full instrument. But of course experiment and, try your kick drum and your snare maybe in total isolation, and then start bringing in your mics and see how it sounds to you. But I really like to keep my room and overhead sends to a moderate level. I don't like to pull them all the way out, but I do pull them down some. And the ambient sends, for the kick drums, I will pull down quite a bit. I won't pull them all the way, but quite a bit, because if you have too much ambience, it will completely wash out your entire drum kit. So we'll see our acoustic kick drum is set up close to the same. So the next thing we'll look at is damping. You just use that as much as you need, but not too much. If you use too much, you won't have any resonance left, so you won't have any power to your kick drum. As I've discussed, is tuning. Most kick drums tune down to anywhere from -1 to -3. I usually find around -3, 3.5 is pretty good for most kick drums. A couple kick drums sound even better when they're tuned down to as far as -5 and -6. Next is dynamics. Pump up those dynamics on your kick drums way up, not all the way up. If you pump them up too far, you can get too much high-end kind of hiss and air in your kick drum sound, and it's very distracting. Doesn't sound good at all. But pump them up. Here I have plus 50%. So that's pretty good. On our trigger, we have about 75%. So the next step in crafting our metal kick drum is the mixer page. So this is a very important step, is setting up our mixer correctly. So when you load up kick drums, you're going to have kick in, kick out for each one. So we have kick in, kick out for also our trigger. So I'll go ahead and rename this trigger in, and I'll rename this one trigger out. So the first thing you'll want to do is create 3 aux tracks. Then drag 2 of your aux tracks down, name 1 kicks, name 1 triggers, and then you can drag another one down, or you can leave it close to the master here and name it kick master. So what we do is we take our kicks, our acoustic kicks, that's our Pro Masterworks, and both of these are routed to our kicks aux right here. So now we have one control for both of these tracks for the overall level of both of these. So then we take our triggers, and both of these are sent to our trigger aux. So now we have one fader to control both of these tracks. So then we can adjust our triggers to kick ratio right here on these two tracks. Then we'll take these and send them to a kick master. So both of those are now going into our kick master. And then on the kick master track, now we have one fader to control all of the kicks, the complete kick sound in our drum kit. After we set up our auxes and they got our tracks going, it's time to EQ. So this is very important, is EQing. And I'll give you a few frequencies to look out for when you're tuning up your metal kicks. Now first off, you don't have to EQ the kick in and kick out individually. If you prefer, you could EQ just on the kicks stem. What I like to do though is kind of layer my EQs where I'm pulling out, putting in frequencies at varying levels on each track. That way I can just kind of hone things a little more surgically instead of bluntly with just one stem. So of course we set up our levels in conjunction with kick in and kick out. So some of the frequencies to look out for, the main frequency is somewhere between 250 and close to 500, probably closer to 400 really. That's going to be the main area you will usually want to reduce on your kick drums in order to get that classic metal kick sound. So you can see here our center frequency is 304. We're pulling it down almost 10 dB, and we have a nice tight Q. Play with your Q levels to decide how many frequencies you want to dump in that range in your bandwidth there. So that's one frequency range to look out for. Look for 250 to around 500. And if you probably start around 300 is a good place to start and adjust from there. Next frequency range is about from 50 to about 60. Giving a nice little bump in 50 to 60 on some kick drums can help bring in that low end boom that you may be wanting more of. If you want less of it, you can start dialing it out. But around 50, I have a little boost there on this. So another frequency range is about 5K, somewhere between 3 and 6. But usually right around 5 is pretty good. So around 5 is where we're really going to get that click sound on our acoustic kick drums here. I like to use a pretty wide Q, and I wouldn't pull it up that far. But something like that may work on some bass drums. This bass drum happens to not need a boost at around 5K. But just be aware of around 5K is where you're going to find that click sound that you're used to in a lot of drum tracks. Now a few other frequencies, there's at around about 80 Hertz is kind of where the drum resonates at. You may want to boost or cut that depending on how boomy and resonant you want your sound. So just be aware of that. And another frequency range is from around 100 to about 200. Giving a boost there can give you some more of that low end power if you happen to be lacking any. And another frequency range is from about 500 to about 700. Giving a boost around 5 to 700 can give you some mid-range power and give you a unique kick drum sound. If you pull out too much of this mid-range between 250 and 700, you pull out too much of that, you're going to be left with nothing but a low boom and then a high-end click, which is not usually good for metal because it's going to get washed out by the guitars. So be careful about making the Q too wide in your frequency range here between 250 and 4 to 500. So we see this is how we have our kick in EQ'd, and our kick out is close to the same. We have a nice little boost at around 50. You can see on this EQ we're all the way down to 40 Hertz, and we're pulling out some of the low end boominess, then we're dialing in some of that thump from about 56 Hertz. We're also pulling out of our main frequency range. We've got 324. Look at our triggers. You'll see how they're EQ'd, close to the same. And then our kick stem, you see how those are EQ'd. And then our triggers, you see how that's EQ'd. You see we have a nice boost at 118 for some of that low end thump. And then both of these are sent to the kick master. And you can see where we are further EQing a bit here in our main range of about 250 to about 400. We have 308 dialed out, and here we have a bit of the resonance dialed out. But I'm actually going to put that back in and turn that EQ off. So playing with those same frequency ranges and setting up pretty much any kit, you can really make your kick sound more metal and really come through even when you've got raging guitars and raging vocals on top of it. So just remember those frequency ranges and play around with them to taste. So if I turn off this effects, all of the effects, play the kick drum, and remember we're playing both our Pro Masterwork kick and our DX kick or our trigger at the same time. So if I play that, so not bad, right? So then we'll turn on our effects. Much better. So that's the basics of crafting a metal kick drum sound in BFD2. So if you remember those few things of loading your kick, loading your DX kick, linking together, making sure you have bleed, making sure your dynamics are up, tuning down both kick drums, and EQing on the frequency ranges that we've spoken about, and also adding some compression, you should have no problem getting an amazing kick drum sound all within BFD2. So if you have BFD2, open it up now, try out these ideas, and let me know how they work for you.